This is the first time when Russian president has landed in US soil with the hopes that they are going to end this 3 or 4 years of long conflict. India was overwhelmingly buying oil from Iraq. China, India can have a tactical thaw, which is we are now seeing.
Exactly.
But there would be a strategic competition going on side by side between the two countries.
Hello, this is Rifat Amin. Welcome back to another episode of Clash Course, where we discuss and solve the greater geopolitical puzzles. And today we're going to deep dive into questions that are actually shaping the strategic posture of South Asia. And from India's trade diversification to its uneasy balancing between Washington, Moscow and Beijing, and from Pakistan's climatic conditions at the moment to politics of aid, governance and survival. We are going to also highlight the shadows of nuclear deterrence, as well as how can we forget Kashmir when we're talking about Pakistan and India. So yes, for that matter, today we have with us Dr. Khurram Abbas, who's basically the director of the Indian Studies Center and also the editor at the Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad. And Dr. Khurram Abbas has spent over a decade researching about the strategic and foreign policy of the 6 GCC states. His expertise lies basically between the Indian-Arab relations, Pakistan-Arab relations, as well as the China-Arab relations. All right, and he has also done his PhD in Peace and Conflict Studies from Nast University. Assalamu alaikum, sir. How are you? And it's great doing this podcast with you today.
Thank you so much. Walaikum assalam, and thank you so much for having me. And I think this is the first podcast with you, so
exactly.
Looking forward to our interactive discussion.
Right, sir. So, as I've mentioned, that there are going to be diverse questions about the South Asia and how this region, the politics of this region is changing. Let's just go and talk about what's been happening. The Trump and the Putin's meeting in Alaska recently, and we have seen that although they're trying to improve relations, but there's this continuous deadlock between the two states. And how is that impacting the India's trade diversification and its market confidence? And also, I would like to know that Pakistan's narrative on it, and how is Pakistan seeing it, and whether it's going to lean on Russia and China after this?
Okay, I think this is a very hot cake right now in the town, and everyone is discussing about that. Well, we have to look at the Alaska summit through the positive lens, I would say, because this is the first time when a Russian president has landed in US soil with the hopes that they are going to end this 3 or 4 years of long conflict that was started in between Ukraine and Russia. Now the problem is that right now I think there is a clear indication from every warring party, whether those are Europeans, Ukrainians or even Russians or Americans, that they want to end this conflict. But the problem is about the terminologies, that how the peace deal would look like. So, for example, Russia wants some guarantees from Ukraine and NATO specifically, because Russia wants that Ukraine should not be part of a member of NATO. That is the first guarantee that Russia requires. And secondly, it wants to end this sanctions strategy from Europeans as well as from Americans.
Right.
But from the Ukrainian perspective and even from the European perspective, they want to have some kind of assurance from Putin regarding that he would not invade again in Ukraine, because there is a quite difficult recent past. For example, you have seen how Crimea actually ended up annexed in Russia.
Exactly.
So they also have their own inbuilt insecurities.
Right.
So I think the last night there was a quite interesting meeting where the European all leaders were sitting around the table, and Trump was sitting on the boss chair.
Exactly.
It looked like he is a boss and delivering a lecture to his subordinates. But of course, it would be very interesting to see how things are moving. But in my opinion, things are moving very fast to positive direction, and there will be some kind of a positive end game for that. You mentioned about how it would affect India. I think a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine, or Americans as well as Europeans, would be a breath of fresh air for India, because right now India is in hot waters right now because of the trade tariffs, because of the Russian. Because remember, since the Russian invasion in Ukraine, the most beneficial country on earth in terms of economy is India, because India imported crude oil from Russia, refined it in Gujarat, and then exported to European markets. So this would be a very positive outcome for India, because that would definitely reduce sanctions and tariffs on India. As far as Pakistan, I think Pakistan has seen this conflict through the prism of unilateralism. Pakistan condemned any kind of aggression, including the Russian aggression in Ukraine, and it also, urged to have a peaceful settlement through negotiations. So again, Pakistan would also see it as a positive outcome. Remember, Russia-Ukraine war actually disrupted the global supply chain of food security, of oil security, and if you recall, Pakistan's food and oil prices surged multiple times after this Ukraine-Russia war. So it would be definitely a good, I think, sign for entire region, for South Asia as well as for the global peace.
But sir, India once claimed its energy sovereignty, and by importing oil from Russia, by buying oil from Russia, and for that matter, we have seen that there are still news going on, there are rumors going on that now India has actually stopped buying oil from Russia and it's exporting oil from Nigeria, and it's also exploring other options like Saudi Arabia and Iraq, etc. So how do you see that this is New Delhi's surrender, or it has actually swapped the dependency on another power?
I think New Delhi has always been pragmatic in its dealing with the global affairs. If you recall, back in 2019, when Trump added sanctions on Iran, at that time India was the second largest oil buyer, purchaser from Iran. But when sanctions were imposed, it was only China left with the buying oil from Iran. Otherwise, India gradually reduced it to zero. So India cannot, withstand with the pressure from Trump administration at that time, even in today. And this is primarily a pragmatic option, because you can't, end up fighting with a major power while staying in this specific world order. So I think India will gradually reduce its supply chain from Russia if this deal does not end up in positively. So in my opinion, I think ultimately it depends. As I earlier said, that India would look like to see a positive outcome of the peace negotiations between Russia and US, because that would help India to continue purchases from Russia. At the same time, I think I would also like to highlight, because I have also deeply understood the oil politics of India in terms of the GCC. Back in 1990, India was overwhelmingly buying oil from Iraq. And if you recall, at that time when the Iraq invaded Kuwait, and there was the Operation Desert Storm by the Americans, suddenly India realized that they should not rely on one or two countries to buy oil. So they diversified their oil purchases from GCC countries, from Russia, as well as from the African countries. So I think right now there is also a realization, not only for Russia, that they have to diversify their oil supplies, but also there is a realization that fine, we can have a strategic partnership with US, but we should not overwhelmingly rely on US, because it is not a reliable partner. So I think New Delhi is coming up with its own pragmatic options right now.
But India has always tried to show itself as a regional hegemon, but do you think that it's actually is coming to the US pressure, and it's more of a performative gesture rather than it's an actually powerful state?
I think India is not a regional hegemon, or I would say, because within the region, it has tried to exert its influence. This influence can be, effective for the smaller South Asian states, but it is not effective for states like Pakistan or Bangladesh. The problem with the India is that it has succumbed to the US pressure back in 2019, as I earlier mentioned about Iran oil purchases, and it seems now that it would definitely succumb to another pressure right now in terms of Russia, and not only Russia. Now India is eager to finalize a trade deal with US so that it could improve or repair its relationship with US. So I think India is trying to do a pragmatic thing, but you mentioned about the regional or global power. I think India is not a global power right now. It is primarily a swing state.
Okay.
The swing state means that a state that has capacity to, be part of one of the two blocks, and that block would definitely would strengthen. But still, India has not decided which block it has to choose, the China block or American block.
Like you mentioned China. We have seen that Foreign Minister of China is also in India, in Delhi, and he was there yesterday. And now we're also seeing that Modi is eyeing for the summit that's going to happen in Beijing. So how do you see this shift? Is India actually trying to improve relations with China, or it's just a stage performance that's happening?
Well, Rifat, I would say that we are currently living in a very interesting strategic environment.
Right.
The past foes are now getting friends. The previous friends are now converting it to foes or competitors. This is something that is happening right now in this region as well. For example, look at the Pakistan-US relations 6 months back. Nobody would have thought that this relationship would be so much seen warmth that has happening. Nobody would have seen any hint of US-India trade tensions back in February when Modi visited White House.
Right.
Look at what is happening right now. I think India is, by the way, India and Brazil are right now the top tier countries that have been facing the Trump administration's trade tariffs. I think the problem with India is that it has to choose blocks right now, because right now it has been consistently trying to use the strategic autonomy to avail as much opportunities as much it can from the China bloc or from the non-Western bloc or from the Western bloc. But I think there is a deep mistrust between between India and China. And this deep mistrust would take time to be, end up. So, in my point of view, although right now Chinese Foreign Minister is in New Delhi, or as you mentioned about Modi's upcoming visit, but in my opinion, these are good signals to start with.
Right.
But it would not end up in a very tangible outcome.
Right.
In my point of view, China, India can have a tactical thaw, which is we are now seeing.
Exactly.
But there would be a strategic competition going on side by side between the two countries, not only in the South Asian region, but also in the economic terms as well as into the Indo-Pacific region. So this is something that on the one side tactical thaw, on the other side strategic competition that would go side by side.
Exactly. Sir, let's move towards what's been happening in Pakistan. The climatic conditions, they've been worsening day by day. What's been happening in GB, what's been happening in KP, and obviously AJK. So, sir, although India's population is more than Pakistan, but still this monsoon has caused less damage there than in Pakistan. Do you see this as the climate injustice? The reason behind is the climate injustice or the governance failure?
I would simply call it a governance failure. Pakistan has been, chest beating for last 4 or 5 years that we are the ones who are highest, affectees of the climate change, and since then we have been trying to get the international funding for that. But on the ground, you will not find any specific systematic frameworks or institutions that are working to basically not only for the climate resilience but also for the emergency flood reliefs. I mean, look at what has happened in KP or in AJK, especially in KP right now. How there was a complete governance failure. You could not find a single element of the state institutions there. Even the government institutions, provincial governments, they were not there. Only Pakistan Army provided relief, and some social organizations or religious organizations like Al Khidmat Foundation actually tried to reach out to those affectees. So people were actually doing it on their own. Similar things have happened in our Upper Punjab recently during the flash floods. In Jhelum and Chakwal, there was complete absence of government there. I think the problem is that Pakistan needs to come out of this sloganeering and try to find out the to be adaptive and try to find out some conventional methods. How identify where these floods are coming every year, where are how Pakistan can how we have to come up with 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, like if there is a flood, how would they start the relief activities, how would the problem is that right now the NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority, it has also been diluted into provincial disaster management authorities, and they are simply like offices with some babus over there working without any tangible outcomes for that. So actually it ends up with the people who are affected cannot get any kind of donation from the government or relief. I think Pakistan needs to come out of this victimhood card. We have to do some tangible things for our people, and not I think this is the real political issue. Political parties need to sensitize and the people should held accountable these political parties, whether those are working in power in provinces or in federal, that they should be held accountable for not doing what they could do to prevent, or at least to prevent these disasters, or to come up with solutions that could have eased their lives.
But sir, don't you think international community should also be held accountable, because Pakistan is contributing like 1% hardly in the climate situation at the point, and there is some climate injustice going on as well. And how do you see this? I
would be still looking at the inward looking approach. I would opt that, because agreed that Pakistan hardly contributing less than 1%. That is quite I think positive or a strong argument. But the point is that we should not wait for the world to reach us for donations. If donations are being coming out, how we have used that, there is no mechanism to oversee how many funds have been ended up into the pockets of the babus, and how many funds have been actually utilized on the ground. I think we need, and actually we are the citizens of Pakistan. We have been looking at everything. We hardly see such kind of developments that have been showcased over there. So in my point of view, it's more of the governance failure, whether it is on the federal government level as well as on the provincial government's level. So that's why I said that people should start held accountable, the politicians, and then it would definitely affect the overall management that is being working on these issues. So I think climate change, I mean, it's there. We have to now not only to live with that, we have to adapt with that, and we have to come up with the ideas to how to respond to these emergency situations. All
right, sir, moving on towards my last question. Obviously, when we're talking about Pakistan and India, we cannot forget the Kashmir factor. So Kashmir, well, how do you see this? That for India it's about control, for Pakistan it's more about identity, for China it's about leverage. So do you think that it's Kashmir is actually the greatest nuclear flashpoint at this of the world?
Yes, it is. And you know, after this Operation Sindoor, I think I have seen how Islamabad is now looking at Kashmir policy to revive it.
Right.
Now, what I mean that how Pakistan is looking at Kashmir policy, you know, Pakistan previously, since Musharraf's 4-point formula, Pakistan was looking at some kind of give and take, or was looking at some kind of a negotiation with India. But you know, right now after Operation Sindoor, there is a clear consensus within Islamabad or in Rawalpindi that we have to, you know, end up this issue of 4-point formula coming from Musharraf. Now there is no negotiation will be going on Kashmir. Every inch of Kashmir is part of Pakistan, and this is how actually Pakistan would look like to negotiate with India. It's very simple. If India wants to negotiate on Kashmir, it would be on the negotiations will be only on the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. So I think now there is the appetite of peace negotiations or negotiations for give and take is not anymore there.
Right.
So now Pakistan would negotiate with India only on IIOJK.
Oh, okay. Right.
Thank
Perfect. Thank you so much for the insights. This was it from our side, and follow us for more insights on the global affairs. This is it. We're signing off. Thank you so much.